and everything like that. Well, welcome, Ashley. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I told you I was going to have you because you're a woman.
Yeah.
But no, well, not only that, but the thing is sometimes I think as constituents or even as people, we don't really realize the various roadblocks and obstacles at women when you're going for an office, no matter what kind of position. We always get that kind of opposition from other women, but also men. So I'm going to give you the floor to introduce yourself. Um, Tell people what you're doing in the community, which you're doing a lot in the community, but also what your position, the position that you're running for the school on the school board, which is going to be interesting because this is new. This is something that never happened. Um, which makes me wonder: is the school board trying to evolve, or are they? Is this a way of involving community? Because if either one of those are true, that's a good thing. Um, and how you feel that you would be a benefit because you have both sides, community and administration.
Yes, I'm Ashley Esposito. I'm a mom. My son's two, but part of the reason why we bought our house in Violetville is because
Mm-hmm.
when we were picturing, our journey to like start a family and everything, like having a
Mm-hmm.
school so close by was part of that decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to see a house that was a block away from the school, like it was just perfect for where we were at in life. And we just love the neighborhood because they have great Halloween. So yeah. And I've been actively involved in education stuff. I actually kind of accidentally got involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw an organization called Schools Not Jails
Mm-hmm.
um, that started, and at the time I was in college and I was working with like councils and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to see how participating in that process was able to help us like change mental health policy, especially like during the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and so representing students and advocating for like just more efficient uh, like policy and procedures. So yeah, I saw Schools Not Jails, which is specifically focused on the school to prison pipeline. And so I'm a former foster care youth and also somebody with learning differences. And so the school to prison pipeline is very real for people with those two situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to get involved to help in any way that we could and support them. And that ended up bringing me into a bunch of other education spaces, and one of which was working on legislation with Delegate Melissa Wells and Senator Carter on a couple bills to help democratize our school board.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically what happened was is that one of these coalition groups, they encouraged me to apply for the appointment. Actually, a few of us applied through the appointment process, just to see, like, because there were so many things that we were working on that there was so much pushback on the school board for
Mm-hmm.
various reasons, but it wasn't in line with like the community perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw that like a lot of the power, decision making, and also the conversations, we needed people on the school board to be able to articulate conversations we were having separate.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied through the appointment process, but as somebody that was like fresh out of college, I'm not an educator, I'm just a parent and community member. But I mean, there's value in that, but on paper, hearing other folks, it's almost like reviewed from the lens of like a job application, which I
Mm-hmm.
feel kind of devalues community voice.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I didn't even make it that far in the appointment process. And then I was told about these seats, and there's a bunch of names that were like, oh yeah, but like we would love to have like more parents run, like who should run and stuff. And there was other parents of like littles that that encouraged me to run, and but also like there wasn't like high pressure or anything like that, but they were like, yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
you run, we'll support you, because I had been working with them for so long. So I really like thought about it, and I thought about the timing, and like it's like if I could possibly make any changes that would have a great impact on my son,
Mm-hmm.
now would be a great time. Be those changes have a positive impact on him and so many other students. So Yeah, I'm just trying to run and bring the community parent perspective. And from education experts that I've talked to, they said one of the best ways to improve enrollment and community engagement is to really start building relationships with parents of toddlers early. And
Mhm.
so I do see like a disconnect of that. You see a lot of other toddler parents that are very involved and very already thinking about pre-K and kindergarten. Like we think about those things in advance. So I'm hoping to help bring that perspective, but it also allows me to not just focus on my son because he's not in the school system. So I think that's actually a positive because that allows me to focus on all the other kids that are in the school system.
Well, I think he is in the school system because he's learning from you and he's watching you. He's looking at your involvement with other children. So it's almost like it was something that I mentioned from a previous guest, and said, "You are your child's first teacher." So all the different things that they're like little sponges. So he may not know what community organizing is, but he's seeing it. So
Yeah.
he can imitate it. He may not know exactly all the pieces, but he knows that if he had to advocate, he can advocate. He could probably in his own 2-year-old way advocate for what he wants.
Oh,
Um,
he is now. Yeah.
okay,
Even with
so
us.
he's in training, but also too one of the things because my daughter will be 31, my son will be 29, and my baby will be 22. So it's been, I mean, they know how to advocate, voice their opinions, all that good stuff. But even when they were little, um, different in different roles, they would communicate like, oh yes, I'm going to be this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm like, okay. And when they had to run for office or do go after positions or community positions and different things, I used to sometimes they would say, I'm not going to be just like you. Okay, fine. But then I would see myself in them when they would go after something or in debate or any of those things. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, so the journey when you decided, so they were told you, they asked you, they said, why don't
Yeah.
you?
So first thing I did was like talk to my husband because in the past, like people have encouraged me to run other things. Just because I guess, another part of my background aside from school is that I've worked in agencies that offer wraparound services since I was 17 years old. So from a policy stance, like I understand how policy decisions are made at the top and sometimes don't have the impact that they intended. And so even as a case manager for social services and like all this, like I was one of those people that would be like, hey, guess what? This isn't working. Like any policy decisions that you guys are making at the central office, this is the actual impact that it has. And I would collect data and like prove the point or whatever. So I've always kind of like been looking at like kind of like the trickle down effect of like policy decisions. And so in the past when people have like recommended that I run for something, I'm like, absolutely not. Like I'm not polished. I don't have a pedigree. Like I'm not I don't come from a family that's like of politicians at all. Like I have a very like complicated background, like family background and stuff. Like so I just didn't feel like I fit what people would like to see of elected officials, like because they tend to be very uh like want people to be, like I said, polished. Like that's the only term I can think of to use to explain it. So I talked to my husband about it and he was like, I think you should do it. And
Mm,
so we really talked about like the logistics stuff, like how I could make it more accessible to my life as a parent and stuff, which, a lot of what I had done is have one-to-one meetings with people and also I do a lot on social media, so it doesn't take away from time with my family because that was like the main thing that I wanted to make sure about is that like it didn't take away time from Vinny. And Vinny has gone out canvassing with me. Like he has
see,
a hiking
he's a
back.
community organizer, 2 years old.
He's been at polling places. He's been to so many neighborhoods in this city. Like, it's insane. Like, he's got a crash course in like Baltimore City neighborhoods, which
But
is
see,
amazing.
he's learning the different, he's
Yeah,
learning about government. So all these little things that we may not necessarily think well, no, I'm not going to say that. So all the things that he's learning, it may not be drawn off of right now, but as he goes to school, when he goes to school, or even now he's in school, he's in boot camp,
yeah.
um,
Oh, thank you.
school board. Oh, well, yeah, he's
Yeah,
in boot camp school board. So he's learning, he's understanding the political process. He's understanding politics of Baltimore City. He's community. He goes to the meetings with you. So
yeah.
he's learning. So when you said you actually you actually went to your husband and said, hey, what do you think? Do you think that a lot of other women politicians who have husbands or partners, why do you think that that's the norm?
Yeah, I was actually given that advice by like a male person that has like run for office before, because like I had a lot of conversations with people that people that had run but not necessarily were elected, but I just wanted to understand like what I was getting myself into. And a lot of them were like, how's your family, like is your do you have support, because that's like so important, because if you if there's stuff that you need to work on, like with
Mhm,
family and stuff, or if it's not timing wise, it's really important. So,
mhm,
um, and it's like, you know, you don't want there to be a strain or like anything like that on your
mhm.
household. So, but I think timing wise, like, yeah, my husband was like, yeah, let's do it. Like,
So what?
it really is a team thing. Like a lot of times, like I
Mhm,
think my husband's only thing, but he is a back like, make this like if I had like right now, he's like downstairs playing with Vinny. And, just it's a team effort. Like there's some
mhm,
around that have made it possible for me to run.
mhm.
Um, and I'm so thankful for his support, because yeah, it is very, especially as a woman, like it's very hard, like because when I am out, one of the things that I've found is that uh I would say mostly from women is, and being a toddler mom, there have been a couple times where I've gotten like comments about where's your son, who's watching him, like almost as if I should like be at home, like I have the
Oh yeah.
audacity to be out without him. And it's like, I spend a lot, like tons of time with Vinny. So it's like, they don't see the day to day, but at the same time, they aren't asking my male counterparts the same questions with the same tone. So, because there are toddler parent or like men that have toddlers who are either currently elected, but I didn't see them.
You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. No, I hadn't seen them grilled like
Mhm.
that. Uh, so it's definitely interesting. Like I think there's I don't know. Like I don't understand it because
It's a double standard. It's a double
yeah,
standard. And it was something that you said. You said you didn't feel like you were a groomed politician. Um, when you said that, that kind of caught me off guard, because what I've noticed is that when you're in office too long, you become distant from your
yeah,
constituents, because it's more of a power, prestige kind of job, more so, because you kind of lose touch. You lose touch. Those politicians that are new and they start off community driven, and it's not, it's, for example, I'm going to use my state senator, Corey McCray. He's out there. You don't have to, he doesn't, you're just not going to see him during political season. I'm getting that newsletter. There are times when he's knocking on my door, and that's great. But you have some you may never see until it's time for um to be, hey, vote for me.
yeah,
Okay, well, what you do all the time, that whole time that I didn't see you?
yeah.
Um,
And I really do like hate the political process because like one of my main concerns like outside of the school board and stuff is voter access and voter accessibility and voter turnout, like,
Mhm.
and you know, for communities that have the lowest voter turnout, I see this happen across the city. I'm not pinpointing anybody,
Mhm.
but there are communities that are strategically left out of the conversation
Mhm.
because they don't have a voting base. And they don't have a large voting base because they don't have a lot of what they call super voters. And
Mhm.
so super voters always get out. They always have knock. They always have mail. They always know when election day is. But for the folks that are, especially young voters, like young voters don't have the voter history to be super voters or to be valued by elected officials or like people that are new and running for office, because just because the way that the data falls, and you have to be very, very careful with relying on data, especially if there's inequities built into it.
Mhm.
So for me, like that's been kind of like conversations that I've been having with electeds or sign is like, how do we engage with like either non-voters or
Mhm.
people that are registered independents or third parties? Like, how do we bring these folks in that are least likely to be engaged? Because at the end of the day, like they are concerned about schools too. So you have to be like intentional about reaching people that in the data don't look valuable but are and potentially could become super voters if they had the right outreach.
Hmm. Okay. Well, one of the things I know in the organization I worked with before, where the organization I'm at now, we were very active with youth, the schools. We adopted schools. Matter of fact, I was told that I adopted too many schools, but it was nice to um, hear their viewpoint. Even the very well, we had different categories. The diplomats, the little kids are diplomatic. They are very bold. They don't have a fear, and they want their opinions and their point. They want it known, and it was wonderful because a lot of times we would involve, how do you see this program, how do you see this activity. Sometimes I would get things like, well, it's old, and then I was like, but I am old, I'm older than you. Well, who are you trying to attract?
Mm-hmm.
People my age. They said, oh, okay, that's good for y'all age. You know what I mean? I was like, okay. I didn't want to take it. I took it, and then sometimes I was like, why do they have to tell me I was old? But I take it, and then their activities, they were very involved. They were very involved. Some of them actually had the opportunity to learn how to create an activity from start to finish, and they got acknowledged for it. So with this new, the elections come out November the 8th. Uh, there are 3 women and 1 man.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys seem to have like the largest number of people who were running in the beginning. I don't know how
Yeah,
many. It
there
was
was
a lot of people. A lot of
there
people.
was originally 8 people,
Uh-huh.
and it was very interesting because um like first of all, this is like the first time it's
Mm-hmm.
redone, but also like I think that I was the only one from like the south area
Mm-hmm.
of the city. Like almost everybody was like the northeast or central, which was also interesting. Like I was like, I don't know how this is going to play out. Like I've been digging into the data a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it tells like a very interesting story about like how this played out, and you know who did great where and all that stuff. So yeah, it's statistically, I think before like a lot of us were like the odds of the women
Mm-hmm.
uh being in the top four, like our gut check kind of like we had a heavier lift, sort of, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
statistically, I think some of us were like the odds of us in the top four probably aren't thing. um so but when it happened, I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. So I do think that the top four, like, well, really everybody, like there is a really great group of candidates that ran for this. Now I will say, like, I think that all of us should stay involved regardless of who the two electeds are, because I think one of the strongest arguments for more elected seats is having all 8 people stay actively involved in support of the two who are elected, and
Mhm.
making sure that it's collaborative, successful, and looking at the 2 people that are elected as like allies on the school board, because we all have like different perspectives and backgrounds. So uh, I think that, yeah, everybody staying involved, it like creates a better argument for having more elected seats. And I do believe like there's a lot of value in the elected seats, because we have to reach out to the community to get elected. So when you look at the appointment process, you have to like, there's only so many hands that application goes through before the decision making. With this, like, I think I got over 26,000 votes.
Mhm.
So those 26,000 people plus everybody else are
Mhm.
coming to the board with
Mhm.
like if I were to get elected. So, you think about how many people were active in the process that didn't.
Mhm. You're going in and out.
Oh, sorry. I think it's because I keep moving. But yeah, the people that participated in this more down ballot race, like those people are engaged and have influence on the school board, which they should. Like, I think there should be community feedback, and I do think that there should be more opportunities for the community to get involved.
Okay. Okay. So this is different. Um, you ran against 6 other people, and you're inviting them to the table to be a part of the decision making, playing a part in all of when you win.
Yes, like if I won.
Or if you
I,
win.
I
But so,
do.
well, I'm saying, so if it's 3 in the top 4, evidently you were doing something different than the other 4.
I think one of the things that's different about me is that I'm a parent. I'm not an educator. So I was very vocal about and articulating like what it feels like to be a parent looking at the school system. Um, and also somebody that has a past that is very relevant right now. So, when they're talking about all these kids and like the needs that they have, I think that right there, like talking about foster care, talking about mental health, talking about having learning differences, and how the school system is either an opportunity to help provide support to those students, or it's a missed opportunity. And so, I happened to go to a school that had a free school-based wellness center that was not just like a nurse or, some like a counselor or anything like that. Like, it was a very comprehensive model. And I hear people talk about like restorative justice and all these things, but I've actually like seen it as a student who actually really, really needed it at the time. So I think that I can help them craft and, give valuable feedback about the models that they're trying to create in this city. So, and especially because where I came from, like it was a very similar like demographic. So, yeah, I think that right there really resonated with people, and just being a parent and a community member that did not have um like I've articulated several times over that my seat would be the community seat. Like, I don't do things, and even in my neighborhood work, like I don't do things unilateral. I don't do things uh because I have power, like something on letterhead and just like approving things like without community feedback. I have a very like democratized process in our neighborhood, that me and our board created to make sure that our neighbors' votes counted just as much as ours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for my community and the surrounding communities, they know how I roll. So, when it comes to decisions, like I'm not just going to go in there and assume that I know everything. Um, I'm very collaborative, and a lot of my decisions will be whatever the majority of the community says.
Okay. Now, one of the things that has been very important to me is the models that we use to educate our children. Um, we go from one model to another model to another model without really doing a true assessment of the children that we're actually that the teachers are actually teaching. Um, as a member, as a potential or a prospective member of the school board, what things would you introduce, or what suggestions would you introduce to the board of which you advocate not having a model, which would give teachers the opportunity to really teach their students because they're in the classroom with their students, and advocate for resources and services to help those teachers with their kids? Or would you say to keep using the common core? Was it common core, common core or something?
Common Core math.
Yes, where some of the teachers hate it and then the
Yeah.
students don't like it. It just seems like every model that has been introduced to the city, it's not working.
Yeah.
So in that position, what would you suggest? Or what would you do?
I would say one of my main focuses is like addressing like standardized testing, because like the thing that I hear from a lot of teachers and students is that, you know, I'm somebody that actually tested well when it came to standardized tests, but I don't know why, because like I barely graduated from high school. Like I had dyslexia and, you know, a bunch of other stuff. So um I don't think that standardized tests tell the full story. And just the fact, like, you know, when you're talking about like mental health stuff, there's people that will never test well. Like it creates like anxiety and a bunch of other things. And so when you look at its relationship to school choice, I think that there's some kids that uh will be negatively impacted by using like composite scores, or like or having conversations at all about like standardized testing and having the curriculum follow that. I just don't think it makes sense to have a curriculum that is solely based on making sure that kids test well. Like that's just, it doesn't allow for like kids to, you know, problem solve, be curious. You know, those are a lot of strengths and tools that I don't think aren't captured by the current system. And I see it also trickle into like the employment, like getting employment after school, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because that culture kind of carries over, like even in my employment and stuff, you know, being somebody that is neurodivergent, um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a culture of like not fitting into the box. And so like that's kind of my like rethinking education. But as far as Common Core, like I do understand the purpose of it, because our country um is definitely behind when it comes to tech. And so Common Core to me kind of restructures like the way that we're looking at mathematical stuff to be more abstract,
Mm-hmm.
or to kind of like break it down into parts and problem solve. And so as somebody that like is a programmer and I do coding and stuff like that, like I see how that there's a benefit in that process and breaking down math in that way, because we are behind as far as like tech professionals. And I
Mm-hmm.
think other countries ahead, we do kind of have that if like, yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, it's a bunch of things, but I think at the end of the day, like having opportunities and have community.
Okay. So, I mean, I understand that. I mean, because even when I was doing it with my sons, my youngest son, what I called factoring, they called it
Mm,
something else.
yeah,
Um, because I went all the way up to calculus. So
yeah,
I'm still, the steps, it was nice, the steps, but then I'm looking at the steps that factoring, you break it down, and I want you to have that, but they were plusing this and this and that. And he was like, okay, can I just do the way I was taught? And there was some pushback from the teacher
hmm,
to the point. She was like, well, we don't call it factoring anymore. Okay, but it's still the same thing. We're still doing the same sides. We're still doing everything because I wanted him to be able to break the problem down anyway, because I wanted him to be able to check it. And I would say, well,
yeah,
check it. Well, the way she checked it was very different than his. And she was like, well, I want him to do it my way. Um, and it made no sense to him her way. And it caused me to have to go to the school and say, okay, every kid in here learns differently.
Yeah.
He's visual. He's visual. This is how it works for him. So how do you teach everybody else? And it took some time, and I mean, it was super great that we had an older teacher who knew factoring and knew the new, and she was able to work with each student with the teacher so that
Mhm.
she could talk to that or teach that audio or that visual or that
Yeah.
guide you had to touch. And it made it a better school year. And she didn't think I was a mean parent, but you know, do you think that, I mean, with teachers, them trying to go out and the teachers, the decrease in teachers going into Baltimore City schools all throughout the state, do you think that it would be a benefit to bring back those seasoned teachers who, in my opinion, should have never left? Because that's a wealth of knowledge. Because that older teacher knows how to work the classroom. She can kind of get you. She knows the talker, the quiet one, the one that they say should move. Um, she knows how to like orchestrate the classroom. She can give
Yeah.
everybody a title, and everybody feels like they're part of the classroom. Do you think that having those senior programs where senior teachers can come back to fill those slots, would that be a benefit to the school system, or would that not be a benefit to the school system?
My state agency did something like that, and I do think that there's a benefit to it. I'm not saying like to replace all the
Mm-hmm.
vacancies with that, but I do think that they're having a partnership between like seasoned folks and like new like educate. There is benefit because like I was like I guess shadowing some case managers, when I was a case manager, and it was very helpful because there was so much knowledge that they had that they can't like just teach. Like you had to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like watch somebody do it, and that's how I learned. So I do think there's a benefit to that, but I also think like for the current teachers, like we really have to look at how to retain the teachers that we have. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of the asks that they have, smaller classroom sizes, better, just culture, better conditions in that way, and just feeling supported and not, being thrown under the bus. All those changes, the culture changes and morale boosters, like I think those are the most important right now. And also for the vacancies to not replace them with contractors, because
Mm-hmm.
like that's like the relationships are so important. And the one thing with the few interactions or just having involvement in my community school and a few other ones and stuff, seeing how much teachers move around to different schools, I see as possibly, and I know that they're doing it for like career advancement and things like that, but um or just because there's a need and they got to quickly move somebody because there's like a gap in what's available at certain schools, but those relationships are disrupted. And so if there's a way to like through policy make conditions better so that teachers one want to stay at the school that they're at, but also have opportunities to get raises and move up and career development, I think that is like the best approach. Like, yeah, yeah, because I just, yeah, because I know, yeah, I was told a story recently about a teacher that wanted to stay with the class that she was with, like to move up with them, which I found to be like really interesting because she had just developed like a great relationship with the parents and the kids and stuff, but they moved her like 3 grades ahead. And so that relationship that was already established there had to start over the following year with their new teacher. So I think there's a lot of conversations that we have to have, but we have to listen to the teachers and the students, like because they are just dropping like so much knowledge like towards me, like, and I'm like, that's valuable, that's valuable. So just taking all that feedback, and I actually put together a teacher exit interview
Mm-hmm.
is to kind of find like because I know a few teachers that left the school system, so I'm going to start with them, and I just want them to give me feedback and tell me one, how long were you there, why'd you leave, would you ever come back, and what conditions or things would have to change in order for you to come back, because I think that will give me a good idea about teacher.
Okay. So, do you think that change of teachers leaving more since with the fact that now principals are in charge? Um, no. Okay.
Okay, so with the principals, the thing that
Yeah.
I see is that with other school districts, they have more support. Their principals have more support by their administration. So there's things that our principals have to do that they should not be responsible for, that are like unnecessary things. Like I would like for principals across the city to have some of those things delegated back to North Ave so that they
Mhm.
have more capacity to do the things that help make their school better. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and I think that like in here, like some people are like, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, we have to kind of look at why principals are able to do more at other schools in other school districts. And really it's capacity, you know, being able to develop the teachers that school or
Mhm.
build more relationships with the community organizations, like that's also on the principal's plate. And even, you know, principals that I've met, you know, when you bring up ideas or like things that the community can do to support, like some of them are, there's pushback because they're like, oh, I just don't have the time, like I don't even know, I just can't think of anything else, I've got so much on my plate. And so I'm also thinking like, you know, as far as morale, like how do we improve conditions for principals so that they can be better, like supportive of like the teachers that work in their school or the staff that work in their school.
Yeah, because when what was alarming to me was that they have to control their budget, which was something that they didn't have to do before.
Yeah. And I think that their budget needs stability because this whole enrollment thing and it fluctuating from year to year is a huge problem. And I have a huge problem with the utilization rate of schools. Like I feel like the formula that's used for the utilization rate of school buildings is in direct conflict with classroom sizes. Because even when my school was encouraged to increase enrollment numbers, you know, when you increase enrollment numbers, you can't guarantee that it's going to be evenly spread across grades.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up with classroom sizes in some grades that were insane, you know, like, but
Mm-hmm.
also but there's a lag in the budget. So I would actually advocate for the budget to stay stabilized, but also, like I said, have something like the principal shouldn't have to go and find repair, like seek out their own contractors to repair a sign
Mm-hmm.
or to find their own landscaper. Like that's stuff that could be delegated back to North Ave, you know, like, but I do agree that I think the principals can speak for themselves about what in
Mm-hmm.
their budget they want to manage and can manage.
But they need that support. They need to
Yeah,
have some kind of support.
yep,
Okay, because that I think that would also play a part in their morale.
yeah.
And
I'm
so
looking at everybody's morale from like top to bottom. Not there's so many issues and the issues are different at every level.
yeah, because I know like the class sizes totally increased. I mean, it was one classroom where it was like 16 kids, and then it was one classroom that had like 30 kids, and it's like, how can you as a teacher teach? I mean,
Yeah,
you can teach, but who's retaining that? If you, I mean, smaller classes. For me, if you have a bigger building, why aren't they utilizing the entire school?
yeah,
Why not partner with, like you said, community organizations that can come in and provide some of that support?
yeah.
Um,
Like Cherry
um,
Hill is a great example
mhm,
because I know they have some organizations there. They have Elevate, which is like their community
mhm.
nonprofit, but they also have like I think yeah, there's several organizations operating
So
out of
their community school.
yeah, but there from what I've seen, that's like a model that is really good. Like very like collaborative from what I see. And and I do it's like it's tricky because it's like I think that there should have been I think some schools are getting it, but it's
Mhm.
also like there's so much they could do to the relationships between the principals and the community school coordinators. Um like before they just like drop them into a school. You know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah,
that
and they change because
yeah,
I used to work with quite a few, and one minute you build a relationship, and some would
mhm,
stay, and then you would get a new one,
yeah,
and then that especially if you're in a community that is thirsty for companionship, collaboration, and they want to be involved in your school. And then you get someone that's like top notch, and then she's there for a season, and then it's like, then you get the person that's not like her, and parents push back. They don't trust her. You know, it's almost like having to revamp it over and over again.
Yeah.
And one
And
of
I think there's a lot they could do, like to do like a knowledge transfer too.
mm-hmm,
I do see some community school coordinators like training others,
mm-hmm,
but I think that there could be like more intentional, um, like collaboration, so that things that are. I think that they all have like strengths and stuff. So even if they had like a community school coordinator summit, and I believe that they are going to have one of those where they can all like come together. And I think, yeah,
yeah,
because I was talking to somebody recently, but saying something that where all the community schools could come together and just like do knowledge sharing, and just share resources, or share how to like build relationships with local businesses, and how to build relationships with like community-based organizations, things, because there's people that have funding and have resources and want to help. Like even with my like our neighborhood association, we just need a direct line of communication, and also just people to want to have us come help. And we have that relationship with our school,
mm-hmm,
but in other neighborhoods it shouldn't be like inconsistent. There shouldn't be some neighborhoods where that doesn't exist.
mm-hmm. Well, I think so. I also think it plays a part with the principal
Yeah.
willingness.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I know I've worked as a case manager, I've also worked with schools, and sometimes you get pushback. Well, I know how to do this. Okay, but we're in this together because you're in our community, and these are our children. No, these are my children. Okay, well, okay. So for the first 6 months, I let that happen. Yep, they're your kids, until there was like this huge situation, and we still had to come in there anyway. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I said, okay, so now these are our children. She said, yes, they're our children. But it had to be something serious for us to have to come in anyway. You know, why not have these things in place? She's more, I guess now she's been there for a while, she's more receptive. At first she wasn't. She felt like um, it showed that she couldn't do it. You can't do everything. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I that also speaks to like how much pressure are on the teachers and principals. um like there's a disconnect between them and like the administration in some
mhm,
ways, because even like, for example, we had this situation where we were trying to help a parent get added resources to their school.
mhm,
And the administration representative came in and was like, oh, here's how you report them for not doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, you see how you just escalated that? And that's not
mhm.
what she was doing. She wasn't throwing the principal under the bus, but that's your first thing. And then also I had talked to the person directly, and the tone that I got, first of all, I got hung up on by
Mhm.
somebody at the administration. Then the person that I got on the phone with was like aggressive and mad that I had pointed out an issue.
Mhm.
And I was just like, you forget, like, I'm one of those parents, like, regardless of whether I'm or not I'm a candidate, or you feel like you, for whatever reason, you think that me pointing out something that is a huge problem uh is coming in bad faith. No, I'm telling you this so you can correct it, and so two, that it doesn't happen to other parents. So if you can't receive that, then you may not be equipped to be in that position.
So do you think that North Avenue needs a cleansing?
Uh,
And
I mean,
if
the
so,
interaction that I had was very, very off-putting. And I'm very concerned. Had the person that I had an interaction with has a very big part in uh, the school system's public-facing information. So that's very concerning to me, because if I got that tone and other parents are getting that tone, I would say, you know what, I'm done. Like, there's only so many times before somebody can come at you crazy for asking simple questions. Um, Yeah, I don't know everybody at North Ave, and so I'm not gonna like make that assessment, but there are people that I'm concerned about whether or not they're making it harder for the school system to get information from parents.
So it's interesting when you say that, because it seems like a lot of the supportive or social services entities that people have to go through or go to get assistance, those people usually have the worst attitudes, the worst
Mhm.
dispositions, and it makes it really hard for people to get service or to get the things they actually came in for. Like, for instance, you said you were calling her to give some feedback of how to change things so that it would be better for other parents. And this woman didn't receive it because she felt like you were attacking her rather than,
It wasn't a her, but yeah,
oh, well, I'm just saying,
yeah,
or
yeah,
him or her. But what I'm
yeah,
saying is when he's in the place to serve. So he
yes, yeah,
or she is supposed to serve. They're playing a role in how our children are being educated. And whether it's in his role or someone else's role, and then you call and you're saying, so let's say it was a parent like me. I'm
yeah,
outspoken. So he would have been lashing at me. So I'm reactive. So I could have reacted in another way, or I could have reacted like you did. Okay, yes, okay. But 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't have. I would have said, okay, what's your name, your title, and everything? And
mhm,
I would have gone over his head, or
yeah,
I would have blasted him on Facebook. I mean, depending on right now, I'm older, but if I was younger, I would have blasted him on Facebook. I would have asked him for removal, and he could be the greatest person and the best employee.
mhm,
But just because of that interaction,
yeah.
he dismissed me. So how
Yeah,
many
and I know for a fact that I'm not the only one that's had that action. So it's a very like broad issue, like with
Mhm,
a person. So it's like, you know, either you address like I think as a leader, like if you know that like somebody is like problematic, like you either need to take them aside, get the training, find out what is hurting their morale, like in their position. Like that's
mhm,
really important. Cause even yeah, social services, like when I was a case manager, I was a case manager for long-term care. And yeah, there were some people that would have like off days or things like that, or morale was bad because of our work conditions, like because there were like top level decisions that were made that
mhm.
had a impact on us. But if you fix those things, like you'll see a shift in culture, but you have to be able to get uncomfortable. You have to be able to first of all acknowledge that there's a problem, which sometimes I find that people high up don't even want to talk about the problems. But
But yeah,
if you address the problem, you can work through it, and as uncomfortable as it may be, you'll come out on the other side. But you have to be willing to get uncomfortable.
okay. So all right. So let's say this happened and you were a part of the board. Would that conversation been different? And if so, how?
I think their tone would have been totally different because I from what I know, like I'm not gonna go too deep into this, but
Mhm,
his I think that his tone was because of like what position I'm in now. Like so say I was in a position of a little bit of power or whatever. Um but that's not I don't care about that. Like I can tell when people are like being like fluffy or whatever, just because they recognize that you have power, but you need to be treating everybody the
the
same
same
across
way,
the
and
board.
treat the parents
Yeah.
that, because everybody has a power. The
Yeah, because
parents.
I don't and for me, like I see that, people don't realize that they can advocate for themselves or fight for themselves and their kids if they're being met with a tone as if they're like acting in bad faith. Like this whole culture of assuming bad faith of
Mhm,
people with uplifting problems, it's like not a thing. If there's a problem, there's a problem, period. And if you're mad about like people's tone with it, like they're personally impacted. And usually when people start fighting for things or fighting for changes, it's because they've been negatively impacted and they're trying to prevent it from happening to somebody else. So you don't get to tone police the public.
mhm.
But as a professional and as somebody in that position, Your job is to fix the problem, not take it personal.
Well, I think that a lot of time, I think that I know that the higher you go, the less of a relationship you have with the public
Mm-hmm.
to a point. I know I've had situations. Well, I'm not going to say situations. I've actually had, yeah, some different situations where I've actually called and they leave you on the hold, like you're supposed, like you don't
Yeah.
have any time. Um, but I'm one of those people that will keep you right on my phone on hold, and I will just clock how much longer I was on the phone, and then I will call. And I have a friend that's over there, and I'll say, I was on the phone for a hold, and I talked to Setter, and she had me on hold for 2 hours. Is there something going on down there? Is she remote or anything? Like,
Mm.
oh, okay. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. Then I get a call. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you were on hold. Okay.
Yeah. And see, like for me, I look at it a little bit different. So I've been going through scenarios as if I'm a parent, like
Oh,
going through the system, and like there's calls that I've made that I don't announce myself,
mhm.
right? So yeah, there's some situations where like I said, I was hung up on, and they like gave me like wrong information. But to me, instead of like focusing on that person and pulling them up by their bosses or whatever, what I see as an opportunity for uh like either there needs to be more training or there needs to be more information publicly available so that the folks that are giving information, like there's certain things that should not have to be a phone call because they should be on the website and they
Mm,
should be
that's
easily
not a good place to navigate either.
yeah, well, see, that's the thing. Like the whole incident that I got into, it was because I was trying to help. Like I'm in my day job, I'm a software developer.
Mhm.
Uh, so one of the issues that I brought up were how many broken links are on the website.
Yes.
Yeah. So I provided a list of broken links, and the person immediately was reactive, was like, that's not true. I was like, here's a video demonstrating, here's where the links are broken. Here, I click the link. Oh, it doesn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
So before they even investigated, like the person immediately wanted to shoot it down and say, no, that's not true. I'm like, I can show you how to use this spreadsheet and find the links that are a problem. And so, like, when you, even if you try to be helpful, people think that you're coming after their job. No, this is like a
Yep.
private. And the only reason why I'm talking about it now is because I don't believe they're fixed. So,
No, they're not, because
yeah,
actually went on to help a parent who was trying to see if there was a waiver. You know how
yeah.
to get a
Oh, yeah.
waiver.
That's one of the ones that was on. I believe on the list. And there was something
Right.
the
And
bullying
and you click on it and it just
doesn't go anywhere.
it doesn't go anywhere. So
I think
uh,
Vivian T. Thomas's link to their school page is broken. So I see things like that, and I'm like, okay, so has there been a drop in that school's enrollment numbers because the parents can't even find information on it? You know, like all those things have to be considered when addressing like if the information's not great, then of course you're going to get an influx of calls. If people can't easily find the information that they need and easily navigate the system, you're going to get these people that are overwhelmed at North Ave with a bunch of phone calls. But if they would fix the public facing information, then they probably wouldn't like
yeah,
they
because
could
you could
free
download
up
the form.
capacity. Yeah, they could free up capacity for people and then also get customer service training. Like I know my old job, like that was one thing that we had to do agency wide is go through multiple customer service trainings because we were kind of like reintroducing ourselves to the public. And it was great. Like there were things that like I learned there that I still kind of like use as far as like, I don't know, like,
Mhm. Yeah,
so
but the thing, yeah, I got you, because I know, like with me, I still use. And some things I'll pull, I'm like, oh yeah, I still have that. I can pull that out, But
yeah,
I totally understand, because when I called North Avenue and I was saying, well, isn't there a waiver form? Yeah, do we have to come get it? And the woman was like, oh, we're only open between this time and this time. And I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, but that wasn't on the website.
yeah, yeah,
So, and we were fortunate that we just went to the school, and the principal was amazing. And she was like, oh, no,
mhm,
don't worry about it. We can do it this way. And boom. Um,
yeah, yeah,
so, I think, well, the thing is this, you're actually in the running. Um, I'm going to vote for you.
yay,
But it's wonderful to know that there are three women, and there is one man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm grateful. I like the fact that you want to involve everyone that ran, because they're representing all the different jurisdictions in the city.
And I think that they have a lot of knowledge. Like even the ones that like were really coming after me during the primary. Like I heard interviews where they weren't being like political or anything and they were just talking about their own experiences. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's what you should have been talking about the whole time. Like there's a wealth of knowledge in each of these folks and totally different perspectives. So yeah, I think we should all go out for a picnic or something and like after
And
every
hash this thing out, because
yeah,
you're going into a board who has been in existence for a very long time. There are some appointments from previous mayors. I mean, some of them have been there for a minute, and I mean, you're going to start off with two, but having that extra six, you can really make an impact with
yeah,
that board. Because then next thing you know, you got two. Next thing you'll have four, and you still have four more. And you keep pushing, you may have eight. You know,
yeah. And I think there's so much value that comes from like elected seats. Like I know there's been a lot of pushback for us to
mm,
because everybody keeps saying we want to see how these two seats go before we make any decision for making it more hybrid or anything like that. But yeah, there's some people that have value that would never be appointed. Like
yeah,
I don't have like the appointment process, like there's a possibility I would have done well with the interview part, but there's no guarantee that, if you're going to stack up parents and community members against educators and education experts, parents are going to fall to the wayside every time. So I think in order to have like a more equitable board and a more engaged board, like elected seats are good. And I'm just hopeful that whoever the two people are that join the board, that the culture of the board is welcoming and inclusive of those folks. Because what I saw happen in PG County was very messy, and it actually resulted in a fully elected board. So, yeah, I think I think it's an opportunity for them to recognize that we're coming in good faith, but we're also I think all of us are the type of people that are very comfortable getting uncomfortable and addressing tough issues. So I think that that's been kind of like I don't know how that's been received on the school board level, but hopefully they're welcoming of that and are willing to work with us. And even if they're like I don't know, I'm going to be optimistic.
Oh, I'm gonna be optimistic. I think that I think that quite a few people on the board are going to welcome that, because that's a whole different perspective that they may not have really put forth the effort towards.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, and I know I always say it like this: there are educators in the classroom, but parents are educators outside the classroom and inside. Because one thing I learned is having a good relationship with the teachers. We learn from each other. I mean, I actually substituted for my children's teachers. So when they went on vacation, so when I've been on vacation, they would go on vacation, and I would substitute. So in that trust. So and I still have relationships, really great relationships. My kids have been out of school for a while. But one of the things is before we leave is thank you, but
Yeah,
leave something um, for voters who are going to be coming to the election on November the 8th. Tell them what your who you are, what your platform is,
yeah.
and if they would like to, volunteer, have a conversation, how could they reach you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's www.ashleyesposito.com. And I'm also running with Salima Jasani. Salima Jasani is an special education expert and actually helps school boards across the country fix their policies so that it's more inclusive of community people. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that like both of us get elected. You have two votes on November 8th. And I do have a full platform on my website. I know people are like, this is so long. But what people don't know until recently is that the platform was actually created from having community conversations. So
Mhm.
there's people that built this platform that I'm running on.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Oh yeah, if you want to send me a message on there and if you want to have a meeting or chat, feel free. I'll get back to you.
It's www. Ashley.
.ashleyesposito.com. And definitely subscribe to my newsletter because that's where I'll be giving like updates on what's happening. And there's some forums that are coming up soon.
Did it come up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay. Thank you. Yep. Oh, Esposito.
Oh goodness.
Oh, sorry.
DS. All right. Type out www. ESPI.
Oh, ESPOSITO.
ASPOSITO.
Hold on. I'll type it.
Oh. Ashley Esposito. Yes? Did you do it?
Yeah,
You did.
I put it in the chat.
Is that it?
No.
Jesus. Which one is it? You put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. EMES. Is it this one? Ashley
Yeah.
S. Ha! There we go. Okay, a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing us what amazing a journey it has been for you to run, but also how important it is not only to run, but to build relationships so that when you do run for a position or a post, you have clear objectives, clear goals that coincide with who you're running for.
Mhm.
So for that, I want to say thank you, and I hope to have you on again when I
Yeah.
have the other show, Political Cipher with Q. And we'll talk about women in politics and women in general.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.